mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the what? Yeah. You know I be on the what? Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the what? Yeah. It's all hard.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting adventure of the live, somewhat version of Ride the Rebellion podcast. If you're listening to this right now and saying, what do you mean live? Well, we are live currently on our Facebook channel. So hello out there in Facebook land. Today in the studio, we have that guy.
Wait, are we live? Are we live like right now?
Yeah.
Ah, fuck it. We'll do it live. Who was that? I forget who did that.
That's Nixon.
We can start over. We can.
Yeah, it's too late now. It's already it's happened. It's in the ethers. And with me, of course, is the king of the South Alabama Turn Down. The once reigning, the once defending, but still janitorial manager of Dale Boyd's Sports Management, Dale Boyd.
Custodian, if you want to be a dick about it.
All right, you like custodian better than I wasn't sure.
It was on half baked. That's all I know. I'm half baked. It was on half baked. It's good.
Not sure where you want to be with it all. All right, so welcome to the show. Today, obviously, we're going to talk to Nixon. This guy. He looks straight down the barrel. Look at him. He's like a
I'm not
pro.
afraid. Yeah, I don't know any of y'all, so I don't care.
So we will talk to Nixon. He's got quite an extensive background in riding, which I think will be fun. We've ridden with him some. He's ridden the Rebellion. He's hung out. He's ridden the South Trails. He was complimentary of him, which is amazingly awesome of him. We did pay him for that, though. And so the rest of the show will just be that. The live stream will just be that. The live stream will potentially disappear. We don't know yet. We're just making this up as we go, as we always do. But first, we got to hit up the sponsors. And our first sponsor we'd like to talk about today, of course, is Dirt Coaster Academy. Nixon? You ever heard of Dirt Coaster Academy?
I hadn't ever heard of them, but through your podcast, I heard about them, and I heard great things about them, and I do recommend people take lessons.
There we go. I mean, you can't even go wrong with that scenario whatsoever. Dirt Coaster Academy. It's not on you. It's not on you right now. No, I gave you the look like it was on you, but it wasn't. It's still on me at the moment. If DCA, look, we talk about it all the time. The Dirt Coaster Academy has paid off for me in dividends, like Nixon just said, and that's a guy that's been riding for a while. I think taking lessons is something that you get some of that when you share the stoke and you're riding with your buddies and you have good friends that, you know, like most of us out there, talk trash but also encourage you. That's important. But having someone actually work from a coaching standpoint pay dividends for me in my riding, it made me better. And then even like talking to like Kevin Black and some from Nixon the other day, just paying attention to how they ride and then asking little questions. So if you have some foundations that are established, then when you go out and ask other people stuff, you can build upon it. My training's gotten better via Kevin Black. I'm riding a lot harder, so I appreciate all that stuff. So if you have a chance, head over to dirtcoasteracademy.com and check it out. Also, we can't be a shameless plug without Dale. Tell me about how your running's going.
My running has actually increased exponentially. And by exponentially, I mean it went from 0 to 2 last week. I got back in the running game, and because of that, I went and stopped and saw Aaron at Run and Try, and he told me that I suck at running, and I'm the opposite of whatever you tell me, so I'm going to go do what he said I suck, so I'm going to get better. And because of that, I love Aaron, and you should too.
So what you're saying is go to Run and Try so he can tell you suck.
He tells me I suck. We run. It's live. I love Run and Try. We speak about it all the time. Dress up like a burrito, get free shoes.
That's correct.
I don't know if that's true.
No, it still stands. I think he can't take it down.
He can't.
And unfortunately, when you make those kind of things into a podcast, it lives on forever. So now we're kind of stuck with him being in that boat. Nixon, do you run?
I run my mouth, and that's got me in a lot of trouble. Talk shit, get hit, or something like that. Mess around, find out.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I used to run in high school in the long time ago. But I started running again because I saw Dale's Strava, and he started doing these micro runs.
Micro runs.
That's being generous. But I was like, that's what I want. That's what I got to do. I actually kind of liked running back in the day, but I would try to do 5 miles or 10 miles, and then I hated it. I was like, yeah, just do small runs. I always preach that on the bike, like do small rides first and then get bigger. And I was like, well, he's doing it. If he can do it, he's an idiot. I could probably pull that off. So yeah, I started running again because of Dale.
Thank you.
Well, that's good. I mean, the only runs I have are the ones after drinking too much milk. The lactose kind. All right. Speaking of drinking too much milk, this is no segue at all into Lucky Shot coffee. I actually just bought a bunch of Lucky Shots. She's supposed to call me today so I can deliver it to my clients. We're giving it as gifts because I believe in Lucky Shot, and I think it is the tastiest coffee on earth. And we're quite literally, we're going to put it in these coffin boxes. I think I showed them last time. I don't know where they are. But we're going to put the Lucky Shot into a coffee coffin. So I'm calling it coughing.
Oh,
you like
brilliant.
that? Caffeine?
I see it.
Right?
I'm supposed to like that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good
I
one.
think you guys are fantastic liars.
You know why you're doing it? Because you got to shoot your shot.
There it
I
is.
knew it was coming. I didn't want to take it from you. I wanted you to say it.
You wanted it.
Nixon, do you think that you could have a better one line for Lucky Shot coffee? And you have to just cue it up right off the top of your head. Ready? 3, 2, 1, cue it.
I don't have it. I don't got it. I don't do well under pressure. No, I like shoot your shot. It was great. I identify that with the brand totally.
Well, there we are. All right, so now we're going to jump into our favorite segment called Meet Nixon.
Wait.
Oh, wait.
I really like to get inked up.
Oh, we're going to give him? Are we giving him the
All of
pass?
it. Well, yeah.
Nixon, do you have any tattoos?
I have one.
Is it a tramp stamp?
It's difficult to explain. It's like a 3-dimensional, like an MC Escher of the Grand Canyon. Do you guys want to see it?
No,
No,
I do not. I do not.
No!
No.
I feel like that.
No.
Not ready.
That is not. We're not there.
I'll show you later.
First live stream, and we got to see the Grand Canyon. I mean, quite the thing.
man.
I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, I
man.
would be tattooed by Kevin Black,
Right, absolutely.
who's white.
Wow, what a play.
You don't know that song, like Frank Black? Like, what is it? It's from the Bloodhound Gang. I'm not black like Barry White. I'm white like Frank Black is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Who's Frank Black? Is that the Pixies
for real?
guy?
That is the Pixies guy.
Yeah, that's right.
He's one of my favorite songs of all time. You ever heard the song Los Angeles? I don't want to go Los Angeles. We just got demonetized. My voice is so close.
And sued at the same time.
Yeah, it's exactly.
I have not heard that song.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's
Hey.
a really good riff.
Totally off subject, but have you ever heard of the chocolate starfish hot dog flavored water
Oh.
Hello Kitties?
Incredible.
They were
Incredible.
playing downtown last night.
Or Rainbow
Wait, that's real?
Taco Surprise. Or
No, Rainbow Kitty Surprise.
That one.
Rainbow Kitten Surprise. Rainbow Cat Surprise.
Have you heard of them?
No.
No.
Wow,
Is this a legit thing? I have no idea.
No, we're serious.
I feel like I'm getting teamed up on with the Nixon approach to sarcasm.
No, we were teamed up on
Absolutely.
by the marquee at the place, and then Bug meets us down there, and he's
But
like,
they have metal
"Oh,
band.
No, they're like the Mumford and Sons.
But we assumed it was like a Korean punk band or something,
Yeah.
just because
I
we're
thought it was
idiots.
Korean girls. That's
And we
like
pulled it up on YouTube. Casey pulled it up. Casey, how you doing? Thanks so much for hosting me, by the way. She pulled up a video, and it was like the setup with some wine glasses, and they're pouring, and I was like, this is gonna blow up. It's gonna be crazy. And then this guitar came in, and the guy started singing, and I was like, holy crap, it sounds amazing. They sounded really good. We probably should have gone to the show.
Yeah, we probably should have. Bug like rolls in with all the other goodwill dressed children
Well said.
of his generation.
Oh, boy.
And they're all in there, and they're all like, "Yeah, you going to the show tonight? Hey, Bug, you going to the show?" And Bug's like, "Oh, dude, you guys don't know who they are. They're great." And I was like, "I mean, we didn't until 5 minutes ago."
Yeah.
But so we kept calling it like, "Is anybody going to that chocolate starfish hot dog flavored sausage water?"
We had a lot of different names.
Kitty.
Most of them appropriate.
Kitty Magic show.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So there we are.
So this was a sideways event, is what you're saying.
There was some
It went sideways on you.
Yeah.
Did Bug pay for you guys to get in?
We never went.
Oh.
No, we talked
didn't
a lot
go.
of shit
We
and
just
didn't
talked
go.
shit and
Yeah,
made fun
yeah,
of
it
the
was more
people
fun.
that were going.
You stood out front and talked trash at the show?
Well, we were at the Loda right beside the venue,
Oh, got it.
pointing and giggling, and is that a guy or girl?
Yeah. Birdie. Do you have to play ball?
Which Loda had decent food, in my opinion.
did have good food.
had a great cider selection. For those of you that care what your drink tastes like. And they got beer for all the high school kids, too. If you're older, old enough to drink.
Ow. Hey, Birdie, I'm not playing ball.
If you guys
Look at
can't
her.
see this, but we literally have a dog pacing back and forth, giving us all the
Just
tennis.
smashed my hand. If you
loves
heard
it.
that in the podcast, she literally came up and nudged my hand. She was like, "Come on, let's get busy." So, all right. So that's our sponsor role.
That's it. Good.
'Cause we fired one
Oh, by the
sponsor.
way, that was Man of War tattoo.
Yeah. And to close our sponsors, don't forget to visit Kevin Black at Man. If you think we're great, I'm even wearing black in honor of Kevin today. That's what I did.
Perfect.
I don't know what that means. Also, if you have a chance, head over to ridetherebellion.com. Check out some merch. We always are grateful. And then you can follow us on all the social stuff. Now let's play a little game called Meet Nixon. Nixon,
Yes, sir.
tell us a little about yourself. Like, how long have you been riding a bicycle?
I've been riding a bike somewhat obsessively since I was probably about 7 years old. And it started with, and you can cut me off at any time. It started with, that was what I was allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to skateboard. I wasn't allowed to surf. I wasn't allowed to do those kinds of things that I thought I wanted to do at the time. But my parents were like, well, you can ride a bike. So I got a bike, and I used to have to wait by the door so my mom could unlock the door and let me outside, and I would go ride my bike. And to me, it felt like complete, I know this is like everybody says it, but it was complete freedom for me. Like I could roll on wheels and I could go around this block, which to me was my whole world, and I was addicted to it right away. And then ever since then, just always been rolling on two wheels and have had an amazing life because of two wheels. Maybe not because of two wheels, but maybe because of the people I met on two wheels.
That's good. So if you, when you think back over that run of time, like obviously there's the kid side of things where you're young and it's like magical, and I'm my monitor, if I could, maybe I could just nudge it just so I can see your face. When you're a kid, it's magical, and but as an adult, what was the, have you chased that, trying to recapture that moment? Or has there been a moment where it stands out or that makes you feel like you had that kid like freedom again?
I like that question. I like any question that makes me think, for sure. I don't think so. I don't think that I think it's intrinsically it's in me to want to be rolling on wheels. And it's not, I don't do it 24/7, I'm not like that, but I always
done some 24/7. You've done some endurance stuff.
I've done some endurance stuff. I did do a 24 hours, but that's sidetrack. But I think maybe you are onto something with wanting to chase that feeling of being on wheels and for lack of a better term, like surfing. Especially in Florida, we're limited with surf, so we got a lot of great trails like you guys have here, unexpectedly, which is always a great surprise. But yeah, I think it's always like if I'm on the bike, then I'm free. And I'm going faster than I can walk, and I'm sitting down because I'm inherently lazy. So I love all those things.
I think we're all inherently lazy to some extent.
Yes.
Right. We always look for that motivation. Maybe the motivation is like, hey, I want to feel like the freedom that you said. Like this morning, we put 20 miles in this morning, 23, but there was no cars. Like we kind of just buzzed across. Like we didn't have to stop at airport, which people listening local will know. Like we were, it was great. The freedom of like we were alone together, like not awkwardly alone.
Eye contact on that was like
took him deep
intense.
into the woods.
You have pretty eyes, by the way.
I did, yeah. So we went we were essentially, we didn't get passed by any cars all the way to south, and then we get in the woods riding.
Oh yeah,
it was cool. So I think that we do chase that aloneness or that freedom of, because we're constantly being stimulated by phones or sound or sometimes when all you can hear is my voice because I never shut up on the bike and.
On the bike? Yeah, that's only on the bike. Holy shit. Which is great. You got great things to say for the first 5 minutes. It's amazing.
Oh, man.
If you ever have a chance, just go to Tallahassee. We'll get to that part. Tallahassee, and go hang out with Nixon. Just ride with him.
Yeah.
So what is it? So let's talk about, so we're chasing that, but then that to you led to, were you professional? Were you a pro? Are you considered a pro? Did you get paid to ride a bicycle? Did you sponsor? I mean, how's that work when you make that jump from a kid who loves riding bikes to a young man that loves riding bikes, and then suddenly there's somebody putting some level of rules on you about riding bikes? Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah. So let me just say this at the top as well, because memory is a very fickle, interesting thing, right? We always fill in these holes, and we make them bigger and better than what they were. So that being said, as I remember it, I'll say it. But at some point, I was very fortunate to roll into a sponsor position with a great company, with great people in it, and great bikes. And that did put something different on I just forgot what I was talking about. Where was I going with that?
Well, I guess you're going with like how you kind of landed in on a pro or
okay, the pro. Yes, thank you. And that's going to happen a lot.
The
pro thing's interesting because, like the word sponsorship, there are so many different levels of what that means. So from the outside, where I was most of my life, I was thinking, okay, if you're sponsored for something, you're getting paid probably too much money, and you get everything for free, and all these things that go with that. What I learned in my experience was everybody's deal is different. That being said, the professional side of it was, if you look at it one way, I was a professional because I was getting things that provided a great lifestyle for me. So not necessarily cash, but bikes that I had were way more than bikes that I could afford.
Right.
And that gave me a different lifestyle in the riding parameters than what I was used to. So I got to do more with more opportunity, which was I'm forever grateful for and still grateful for this day. But the professional thing was I never had a pro license, but I did race in open races, which is with some pros. So like at the Nationals at Mammoth, one of those years, 2007 maybe, 2005, I forget. But I remember jumping into the endurance race, which is a 60-mile marathon before it was marathon. And it was brutal, super tough, and I had a blast with it. But I remember jumping in with big-time pros, and they're like, well, this is the open category, so it's open. It's everybody. And I was like, oh, I'm racing the pros, and I got smoked. But I had a blast, and I have to give credit to one of my guys that I hope you can hear that, because I hate it when I hear that when other podcasts do that. And that's more for me than anybody else. But on that race, because Cannondale, I think I fooled them somehow. Was like, hey, I'm not like a great rider. I'm not like super talented, but I knew how to sell myself.
Right.
So I could talk a good game. And so they were like, hey, we should probably like help this guy out, and then he'll help us out, and we'll do this thing. And I didn't realize that the people that were making that work for me, there's a real value to having fast riders, and there's a real value to having approachable riders. And the approachable riders are the ones they're going to remember. So as soon as I found myself in that position to be somebody that could bring people behind the tape, like, hey, our team truck's here, and all this, can't come back here. It's private. And hey, come on back here. Let me show you. Here's a T-shirt and a sticker or whatever.
Right.
And that stuff lit a fire in me when I was getting that. So all of a sudden I got to be that guy, and I was like, man, lighting people up. And these are 5-year-old kids and 50-year-old men that own multiple businesses. They're just as pumped to get a sticker and a hat and go behind the scenes. So that did a lot for me as far as embracing that the professional side of things. So no pro license. I did race some open races. I didn't think I did too bad. I had a blast. If you look at my racing career, I consider it completely successful for what I was doing, because I never should have been there, in my opinion, in the first place.
Right.
So the people that put me there, I'm forever grateful. It was again, I couldn't afford those bikes. I probably never would have traveled to those places and ridden those places. And the people that I met were the best part of that. In that endurance race, if they get me out there to do these races, I do every race I can. I'll jump into a downhill race, I'll jump into a cross country race, and I'll probably do terrible at all of them, but I'm having a blast. And I'll wheelie across the finish line, and I'll keep most of my clothes on, or whatever happens. I like to keep it fun for me, because I like to win. I've won a couple races in my lifetime, mostly because other people didn't show up, but I'm fine with that. It still counts.
It does still.
But this guy was a demo driver. Now, a demo driver is somebody that typically drives a truck for a company, and they drive typically back then all over the country, and they stop at places and they hook up with bike shops. Say, hey, you're a Cannondale dealer. The truck is coming with all these new bikes for next year. Get your customers to come. We'll go to a park, and you guys can demo these bikes. Sign a waiver, blah, blah. So these demo drivers are, in my eyes, they're my heroes. Just saw Sasquatch. They're my heroes because they work endlessly, and they do these driving jobs from it rarely is from Reno to Vegas. It's usually from Reno to New York City, and then back to Vegas, and then over to Canada, and then back down to Florida. That's what the job has been for a long time. But those guys were always super supportive of me, because part of what I deemed as a lack of talent in riding was like, you show up to these races and they paid real money for you to be here, and they gave you a sweet bike, and you're doing all this, you better help out. So I was always in the pits, whether I was wrenching or cleaning bikes or sweeping or more importantly, sometimes for those guys who are also mechanics, entertain the crowd that's there waiting in line to ride these bikes, because they're sitting in the sun, they're waiting to ride these sweet bikes. Entertain them a little bit. So tell a couple jokes and whatever, and keep them entertained. And this guy, Jack Daniel, I forget his last name, but I remember his first two names. Jack Daniel was a demo driver.
Jack Daniel.
Yeah, was a demo driver for us, and great guy, super fun. And he goes, hey, do you need a feed for this? You're going to do 3 laps, and I think they're 20 miles each at 14,000 feet or whatever, 10 to 14,000 feet.
Gee,
and I was like, I don't need a feed. I really don't like water. The fact I'm drinking it now is amazing. I've never been a fan of water, which I have a fact I'll tell you later about water I learned this weekend from Ronan. Mm-hmm. But he says, well, you're going to need a handoff. You're going to need a handoff. I'm like, okay, well, give me a handoff. And he also told me something valuable about racing. He goes, hey, when you race, are you going to go hard? I'm like, well, it's a 60-mile race. I'm going to go as hard as I feel. I got to save the bike. And he goes, you've got team bikes on the truck. All those bikes are yours. If you know that you can race a little harder on the bike, knowing you've got some spares, you might be faster. So go for it. I was like, oh, man, that alleviated part of the thought process going into the racing, and really to help me. It really helped me. Like, yeah, go for it. If you got to take a chance and hit something a little harder. So I came through for a feed zone, and sure enough, he had a water bottle for me. Had a little bit of ice in it. It was like, oh, dude, great. And I wasn't doing terrible. I was actually doing okay. And then 40 miles in, I come back around for the last feed, and he's there, and now there's a crowd of people. They've already seen the pros come by probably like 4 hours ago, whatever. I don't know. They're probably finished already. But I'm coming through, and there's hundreds of people around. It's like, I guess the races had kind of converged, and now everybody's watching the marathon, whatever happened, the national championship. And I come through, and Jack is in the lane. So everybody's out of the lane. He's in the lane where we're racing under the timer. And he's like, Nixon. So he's already like bigging me up. I'm like, oh, here comes the feed. I'm going to take a spot. And he goes, you want water? Or you want a cheeseburger? And I was like, obviously, I took the cheeseburger. Right. And that was probably the hardest 20 miles of my life, having sucked down 3 bites of a cheeseburger that I shoved in my pocket. I was like, what an idiot. But the crowd went apeshit. Again, in my mind, maybe they didn't even see it happen. I don't know. They went crazy, like, what an idiot. And I was like, wow, perfect. I guess riding to Cannondale. Well, we just sold 2 more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, sidetrack real quick.
Yep.
We have one listener. His name's Bug. He said it's super staticky on the live feed.
It probably is. There's probably not much. Like I told you,
All right, Bug,
I tested
we love
it
you.
once. It worked great. Will be what it is. That's why the live part is always the live
You can
part.
listen to it on Friday.
You can listen live when it comes out.
Good morning, Bug.
Good morning, Bug. Yes, right.
It's so weird because it was so clean a little while ago, and I have no idea why it is now. It's an odd thing. Like I said, I don't know exactly how to make it all perfect, except for in the post part. Going live is a whole different beast. So when you go back and look at, when you go back and think about like those big ass races, those marathon races, and these endurance races or whatever it was, like, how do you prepare your brain for that? Because here's my problem. I like to go, I don't like to ride a lap. I have a problem with laps. It's just the way my brain's always been. So if I get super bored, then my brain shuts down, and that is not safe on a bike. Right? I will crash because I'm just clocked out. So if I'm riding, I could, like what you guys did this morning is a great example. I can do that because you ride up, you ride a track, and I ride home. My brain can handle it.
Right.
But if you told me I had to ride 3 laps at South Alabama, I physically, my brain shuts down. And that's a problem with my brain.
Right.
How do you're talking about 60 miles of that, and it's climbs, and it's tough elevation, and I think you've done even more. You've done a 24, have you not?
I have competed in a 24. I entered and I finished, but let's just leave it there.
Okay.
It wasn't pretty.
So how do you deal with that side? I mean, how do you process through that? Because that seems to be, at least to me, that's crazy on the endurance side.
We tend to, I'm knowledgeable, but this is, again, my opinion. I think what we do is we play to our talents. So we do what we're best at, right? To do something that we suck at it's tough, especially as guys. We have that ego that we're like, listen, I'm not, I've had a couple people in my life say like, man, you seem to be pretty decent at most things. I'm like, no, I just don't do the things I'm terrible at because I don't want to be terrible at something. So that being said, I wasn't huge on the endurance riding until I realized that I didn't like the regular cross country format. It was too fast. It was too short. It was like 1 hour and 45 or 2 hours. And I much preferred being on the bike longer just because I liked riding bikes.
Right.
And then at the time, it just was falling in with my relationship with Cannondale that I did a 12-hour race in a place called Oleta River State Park in North Miami Beach. Side note, at 3 different races.
Yeah, this is a good one.
3 different races in North Miami Beach. We've had 3 separate world champion mountain bikers quit.
Quit the race? Like how far in did they quit?
Pretty early. One of them quit. 2 of them quit on a regular cross country race, which is probably going to be 24 miles around that. So that was a single speed world champ quit and a Masters Brazilian world champ quit. 2 different races at the same park. And then at a 12-hour race, one of my kind of teammates did a couple laps, and I had advised him, hey, come early, let's pre-ride, and don't bring your hardtail. Well, this gentleman decided, it's Florida, I'm bringing my hardtail, I don't need a pre-ride. So as my boy was shoving hot macaroni cheese with tinfoil into my back pockets, which was a great secret, by the way, it was like a back warmer, and it was real food that I could eat. So as he was doing that on like my 4th lap, this guy comes over to me and says, that's not fucking mountain biking. And then I said, as I was leaving, I said, well, I told you should have pre-ridden. Don't bring a hardtail. And I went away, and then he went home.
Interesting.
That gentleman you might know as Tinker Juarez.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's a quitter.
So I beat him technically. I mean,
Well, you won.
yeah, I didn't win, but I have won that
Listen,
race before.
I think that outlasting counts.
It does. Well, that's yes. At any level, whatever. If you finish first, it doesn't have to be pretty. You can drag your bike across. You can whatever it is. If you finish first, and that's what it is. If people don't show up, you win. Racing, it's like art. It's different for everybody. You know, everybody's got a different idea what they're going there for. And if you look at my stats, which are they're stats right there, it is pretty obvious that I was there for the fun. So when I hear somebody say like, I'm just here for the fun of it. Usually they're kind of discounting what they're going to do in the race because they're kind of giving you a heads up like, hey, if I lose, then I was just here for fun. Mm-hmm. But you really can. There's plenty of people out there just really going out there and having fun and get dead last. And there's people having a blast and winning. And there's people in the middle. And also with that, there's people that maybe take it too serious and they're not doing well. Or maybe they take it too serious and they're doing really racing is whatever you make of it.
There was a golf theory we always used to say too. It's similar to that. Like no one cares how you got to the hole.
Right.
It's the score you write down on the card. Right?
Yeah.
Like no one cares how pretty it was to get there. You could have the best drive. I learned this from an old man he would hit 150 yards at a time.
Right.
And I would smash the ball and like think I was great laying in the middle of the fairway, and he'd casually walk up and tip his hat. Nothing was pretty, nothing was extravagant, nothing was great. He would whip my ass every single round because it was just consistent.
You want to tell them the old bull, young bull?
No, you need to because it's funny. That's good. Now, I was going to ask later, but it's good. Your position. So now that you've raced and you've done all these things and you're still racing, you still compete a little bit. No, I think you retired, right? De facto retired.
Yeah. Semi-retired. Yeah.
Did you retire? Or did you Ragnarok? So I have this theory that at some point I'm going to get Ragnaroked out of a situation. Like I'm a creative guy, but there is a point in which my knowledge and wisdom and my skill set will exist to teach others, but I won't necessarily be. And I'm comfortable with this, so please don't take it personally. But I won't necessarily be because physically I'm just not. I don't have the physical capability or the mental capability to be the number one guy anymore.
Right.
But I do have the ability to inspire maybe that number one guy. So I always call it Ragnarok. My therapist hates it when I say that, but I'm like, it's real. I'm going to literally have creative Ragnarok. I will cease to exist creatively.
Right.
She's like, why do you say that? I was like, because it's a real thing. One day it'll happen. Do you feel like that's something? Or do you feel like the upside with your situation is you get to go on forever with it, and though riding may disappear or lessen or competition may lessen, knowledge doesn't shift down that pipeline. I was kind of teeing up the bulls there too, but like, I mean, how do you deal with that side of it?
I think because I really did feel incredibly, it's hard to express the words. The position I was in with that company was so amazing that I was ready for it to drop mid-season. I was ready for them to say, hey, you know what, we're moving in a different direction and we're going to do something else. And I was like, hey, first of all, thank you so much for what you have given me already. I feel like I should be mentioning names, but there's so many names. Like literally everybody in my life, including you guys, have been part of my success story. That's no doubt. So I will say Matt Jewett and Sean Sunheim and Ravi Raj Kumar and I mean so many people. Cindy, we go down it's Linda Frazier, Troy Laffey. I mean, I almost feel bad leaving people out. It's like I shouldn't say names, so scrap that.
Well, it's too late now. It's
Fuck it, we'll do it live. But so I was always ready, I guess, for the other shoe to drop. And when it came, when my official contract sponsorship ended, it was 7 years of being on a team for Cannondale. And that was, again, year one was like, what?
Yeah, like, what am I doing here?
And that was before I got my stuff. It was like, wow, crazy. And then every year was like, okay, probably not going to happen again. And I remember much more talented and nicer guys and girls that would make the team and then wouldn't be on the team again. And then I kept making it. And some of these people would talk to me and be like, how are you still? And I'm like, I don't know. But I think it has something to do with the fact that I would show up to the races. And it was in our contract. We had a 7-page contract. It was in our contract to be like, hey, show up to the truck if it's there. Do these things which are so simple, but people kind of like blow that off, and help the demo driver because that job is one of the hardest jobs with the bike company. And go help them. And I reveled in that. So I was doing that before I got hooked up which is probably why I got hooked up, part of it. So I always liked doing that. And it was part of the show. And then for the demo guys, it's like a dream job. They sell it as a dream job. All the companies do. Like, hey, you get to ride all the way across the country and all the cool places. It's almost worse because you get to work for sometimes 10, sometimes 15 hours setting up, and it's windy or it's snowing or it's raining, and you still got to set up because you still got to do it for the shop, and the people show up and you're there and you got to do all the stuff and have donuts and have coffee, and hopefully you've got a guy to go get coffee and entertain the people. And then you pack up and then you do it Saturday and then you do it Sunday. You might have done it Friday. And then when it comes to ride, the mountains are right there, the trail's right there, but how are you riding after all that working and doing all the stuff? Yeah. So I took it upon myself with the first demo truck, who was Jack Gebbard. That's who, Jack Gebbard. When he showed up in Florida to my first bike shop I worked at in Fort Lauderdale, he showed up with a box truck with like 8 random Cannondales and said, hey, man, you want to go do a demo? And I was like, I'm off on Saturdays. Let's go do it. So we worked, and we didn't need a permit. We didn't need anything. We got people riding bikes. We rode the bikes. And then at 5 p.m., he says, okay, I think we're done. I'm like, oh, let's pack up. So we packed up really quick, took the tents down, the poles. And I go, you want to ride? He goes, we never done this early. I'm usually in the dark. I mean, let's go ride. So I was like, well, that's every time you come down, I'm going to make sure that I'm with you.
Oh, man.
And he gave me a T-shirt, and I was like, oh, I made it. I'm big time. Look at this. It doesn't fit, but look at this. I made it. And he was so thankful for that. And we wound up traveling together, and he was my support for a lot of races. And then all of a sudden I realized, wait, if I get in there and help him, they're going to fly me out. And the race is going to be in Mammoth, and I'm going to meet him in Southern California. That's 2 weeks on the road in California working for the company. So it was a lot of volunteer stuff, which there's many ways. We just talked about getting sponsored. There's so many variations of sponsorship. Literally, it's limitless. But my way in was doing the volunteer work and not expecting much in return. So every time they did do something for me, I felt like I should do more. So it was it was a great give and take relationship. One of my boys who was a rep and now is up in Cannondale, pretty high up, super nice guy, Harrison Levins. He told me, like, hey, if you think that we give you more than you deserve, that's going to last for a long time because we feel like we don't do enough for you. Wow. And after 20 years of sponsorship, still, I was like, man, thank you for saying that. It just is a little nudge, like, man, great, you recognize what I'm doing, and I'm super thankful for what you're doing. And again, when it ends, if and when it ends, which it will, I'm so thankful for the opportunities because it's been a dream life that led me to here, which is part of the dream.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think it's fascinating just riding with you and talking with you and having those conversations of knowing that someone was able to. You hear these cliches of like pursue your passions, right? But you literally did it, and it's rare when you hear somebody that saw beyond the passion being a paycheck, and you said, "Hey, this is where I want to be. This is something internal of you." I talk about it a lot on the show, like how important it is. This internal chemistry, some wiring in your brain pushed you into that further because the gram didn't exist.
Right.
You weren't doing it for the gram.
No.
You weren't doing it for Facebook likes.
No.
You literally did it because internal to you, you were a very fortunate individual to actually have touched the very thing that most people, you touched your, let's call it soul, but you touched that piece that was like this, you got to see it. And that's so rare. I mean, to me, that's fascinating. So even just spending time talking to you, like we're laughing, we're goofing off and doing a lot of stuff. But I came back and told my wife, I was like, I had the most motivational ride. Just the vibe from you is positive. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you. Like that's a big, and I just met you.
Thank you.
But I appreciate, I can feel the energy from it. And I feel like it, hopefully the rest of the audience here gets that same vibe because that's huge, man. That's a big deal to have that sort of energy come from that.
I appreciate that.
How do you keep it up not up so long, you know what I'm saying? How do you keep
explain.
Your energy?
Please explain.
How do you keep your energy up so high? Like we had a conversation about trails. And you talked about it. You're like, I've heard people complain about them. And then you talked about shifting your perspective. How do you go through the process? You can't just do it for trails. I'm sure you've had to shift your mindset all the time. How do you keep your stoke up high? How do you get people to just fall in love with you and be like, this guy's incredible all the time? I mean, what is that? Where's that coming from?
Fooling people. Like just lying, bullshit, putting on a face, and then later being like, forget those monkey fighters.
Right. Monkey fighters. I'm going to use that one.
Two things. I hope your mom has her curse clicker on because I'm about to blow that up. Better be triple digits too because I'm about to freak out. So I'm going to back up a little bit because I love the conversation. It's very engaging. It's very it gets me thinking. I love it. I haven't thought about this stuff for a long time. So I'm first of all, I'm flattered to be here. I love it. I think this is great. Part one is keeping the stoke up is finding where that energy is. So I don't have this energy. I feel, and this is a complete hippie. I'm not a hippie for many reasons.
What'd you say?
For many reasons.
I like war and meat.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of anti. Yeah,
He said, I'm not a hippie. I like war and meat.
I mean it's not that I mean I get the anyway. The mechanics behind it are different, and if you're offended, I was offended first. I already said that, so that's how it works. I identify as being offended all time. So fuck off. Okay, go ahead and click it again. That's 3. But so what I do is selfishly, I feel like if I can reflect that vibe, then that's where it is, because we all have energies and hippie stuff. We all have that, I think. But when I heard your podcast, when I met Dale and then heard the podcast, that was another cachet of positive energy. And I was so pumped about what you guys were talking about. I remember mowing the lawn, having headphones on, and listening, because I said I would. So I'll listen to it, and if I don't like it, I'll turn it off.
Right.
And listening to it, and it ended way too soon. I was like, when's the next one coming out? Kind of like Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh wow.
Waiting for the next one.
Got a Yellowstone comparison. We'll take it all day.
I've never seen it, but I'm just.
That's just what they say.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of look like Rip a little bit.
Yeah, you 100%
The
look
kid
like Rip
version.
Taylor. You look just like
Yeah.
Rip Taylor. 100%. Hey.
Oh man. But so that was one part of it. That this is provided a big part of Stoke for me, right? Because it's energy, and we all need energy. So when I clued into this, I tell people about it all the time. Like, you should listen to this podcast. You should listen to this. I've got a couple of guys in Tallahassee that are doing some stuff like that, and I'm like, well, go listen to this. This is great. And one of the things I say is it's so cool to hear, because I remember being there. I remember the energy and the enthusiasm and the opinions about things like spandex or tights or road bikes or things like that.
Wow.
So I remember those things, and I'm like, man, they are not wrong. And one of my favorite words is perspective. I have a different perspective. They're bringing me back to that perspective. What's the difference? What changed my mind? So I'm in tune. I listen to every episode because it's entertaining. I love it because it teaches me about accepting. The other part is that energy that I have to pursue my dreams and do all the stuff is only because the people in my life have afforded me that. Like all the people at Cannondale, the friends, the people I ride with, the people the haters that motivate me. Everybody has really, if they weren't there, I wouldn't have made it like that for sure.
It's interesting because we talk a ton about community on the show, and look, this is slightly controversial. I'm not zinging it, but we talk about how our chapter, necessarily our IMBA chapter here, but it's no fault of any person involved locally. It's just the way that those things go. They just have a different vibe. And what's happened is originally, I was telling you the story. We broke off. The rebellion breaks off, and it was called the rebellion because we were moving away from that.
Right.
We started a community, and then through Dale's partnership on this, Dale kept up the fight better. Some of us quit, right? Some of us walked away, and then Dale's like, "No, I'm gonna plant my flag, and I'm gonna fight for all the territory." And he did an admirable job at it, and got us. Now all of a sudden, the rebellion is the Samba community. Samba is the rebellion. Now we become one. And what's happened, to your point, I feel better mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it might be. I ride for mental health reasons too, but I get a lot more out of it now than just physical activity.
Right.
I gain this community side, which creates stoke in me that transfers over. My employees will tell you, they can tell when I'm either planning to go riding or have come back from a good ride because my entire persona is different.
Right.
And they'll say, go ride your bike. They'll kick me out and send me on my way.
We had this same talk while we were riding this morning.
I had my headphones in. I didn't hear shit.
Ah,
That's the trick. I can last forever with this guy. I turn the headphones up.
Talk with myself this morning. There's a homeless dude in the woods that him and I talked. He heard me.
Yeah, boy, sports management. I just talk to myself on a regular basis.
I would listen to Rogan in my headphones, but he doesn't hear me when I'm talking. He just keeps talking. It frustrates me.
So over the course of that, and you've seen technology change with bikes. You talked about spandex coming in and going out and all this different trends.
It's never gone out, by the way. But go ahead.
No. I would. Could you address the camera for that one? Go ahead and let's a little game. Let's have a little debate. Let's pitch for spandex. Nixon first.
Have you put it on? Oh my God.
Do you think there's a weight requirement for that though? Because guys like me are.
No, you don't have to wait. Just buy it. Don't wait.
Oh no, it's not a. Listen, if if you've ever been described as husky.
Today I was. This monkey fighter said, "Hey, husky."
No.
It's like, you trying to get around me?
There was a trash box on the side.
You're
of the
calling me a
road.
trash box? A husky trash box. That sounds like the band.
He was right.
Squirrel nut,
great
sausage
band
water.
Yes, sausage water. Yeah, it was there was a husky box.
I didn't say it.
How
but whatever.
convenient.
Whatever.
Conversation.
So that's it. Just have you ever tried it? That's your quote to spandex.
It's okay. There's a purpose for it, and I'm going to step out of my range like I always do. I guess you could assume I'm out of my range, but I think there was even and this is a stretch, but I think there was an NBA team that tried tights. We'll call them tights because even your bro stuff has spandex in it, but it doesn't matter. So there was an NBA team that tried tights, and they were proven to be faster and more efficient and better sweat dissipation.
Interesting.
But it just didn't vibe with the crowd, so they didn't do it. That leads into another, and I'll spiral off a bunch. That leads you to another thing. I don't know if you ever saw the pictures where downhillers were wearing skin suits, and they were fast as shit,
Right.
crazy fast. And I mean, they were plasticized. I mean, it was like they had their pads underneath, and they were like almost like air dried on, like heater gun dried on. It was amazing. And then they disappeared. Why did they disappear? They disappeared because the governing body, I think it was UCI, decided, yeah, it's a rule now you can't have skin suits anymore. Oh, that's bullshit.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of like kerfuffle about it. This is before social media. A lot of like, well, I can't believe they would do that, you know. And come to find out, the people that were lobbying for that anti-skin suit were the sponsors that were paying the people to race, but they weren't racing in their stuff. We talked about sponsorship and expecting the easy stuff like, hey, make sure you ride the tires we give you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if you don't like them, don't say anything. Find the tire they make that you do like. But whatever we give you, ride them. Right? We're giving you the stuff. It's like being paid. So that being said, they lobbied. They got it in the rules, and now they all wear but you'll notice they're getting a little tighter. As we go on seasons, they're getting just a little tighter to get a little more aero because it matters. So back to the tights thing. It dissipates. It's supposed to fit tight. When they buy something loose, it's to hide some proportions sometimes or whatever. Or there's also the social aspect of being accepted. We don't want to wear a tight thing because our friends make fun of it. By the way, your friends are your friends, and they're always going to make fun of you, no matter what you have.
That's right.
You bro it out. You've got your flat brim hat and your whatever. You're doing all the right things, and you got a visor that sits up vertically, and that keeps. I don't know how that keeps the sun up, but I'm old, so I'm old school. Your friends will make fun of you. That's no matter what you have. So whatever's comfortable for you, do that. But as far as efficiency, the tights are amazing. They disappear, and if they're on your body, they have like a double grid system, most of them, where they pull the sweat off, and then on a small grid system, they put it to an outside bigger grid system, and the air takes it away, so you're dry. So I tell people, like, I don't sweat. I mean, obviously I do, but the clothes take it away right away. And there's somewhat of a compression component on the legs too, if you get the right stuff, and that feels, it's like a little hug where you're riding,
Right.
racing, whatever, you know. So I'm all about it. But I do have bro outfits that, depending on my crowd, I got to kind of chameleon and blend in a little bit.
Right.
I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? And they think like, oh, this guy's a big stoner or whatever. And I'm like, perfect. I'm in the zone and we do that. And then,
But have you guys heard about Cannondale?
oh yeah, I probably put a sticker on their car already. Yeah, I'm already in trouble for that. They've heard about it for sure.
You just walk by and just toss one on their car and just leave it at that.
Yeah. Or I'm wearing a shirt. Maybe I'm wearing two shirts that say Cannondale. Maybe my socks or my hat. Or there's always something. It's I've always liked that. It's part of my identity. I feel like just putting it out there and representing who you are naturally. If it's positive, it's going to do any company good. Which is why, coming back to sponsorships, go for it. You don't have to be that fast. You don't have to be that talented. But if you want to go for it, go for it. The more open you are to whoever it is that's offering you something, go for it and represent it as good as you can, because that tends to spiral into more of whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the sound advice for like anybody and passionate about anything. Like even employment. If I see somebody that's really, I got a guy that's vying for a job and he, not being paid, has sold like 3 or 4 different clients, like at least set up meetings.
Right.
Because he is hungry for the job. Well, that says to me, he's worth investing into. It may not be the time. I had to push him off a little bit.
Right.
But now it's like, bro, okay, I have the money, or you closed a deal, same thing.
Right.
This guy sold 10 bikes.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to spend any money on it. It's still a business.
Right.
As much as we love the riding and all that stuff, like it's a business. And so anyway, to your point. Now, I got to know though, but the technology side, what is the thing that you've seen the biggest shift? I mean, spandex was one, you made that, but like, what's the shift that you've seen? I mean, geometry's changed, obviously wheel size has changed. There's been a lot of different stuff. What's one of the ones to you that stands out that's been like a big shift or that you think shifted the entire community or the ride or any of that? What's a big change you saw over your? Because you've ridden a lot, you've experienced a lot, and I think that's an interesting. To me, it's always fascinating to hear that kind of stuff.
Okay, I would say there's because I've been around for so long. You can say old. I'm fine with that. I'm pretty comfortable. I've seen so much change. Maybe one of my favorite things is like the amazing thing of like electronic lockout. Like that's so cool. Like and I like that because it's cool, convenient. Do I have to have it? No. Would I ride it? I'll ride it. I'm to the point now where I'll ride anything because I used to shit talk about everything, and now I'm writing all that stuff.
Right.
So I'm again going with an open mind, being like, I'll try anything, and if it's not for me, it's not for me. But it doesn't mean I can't sell it to somebody that does want it. So back to technology, I've always loved things like electronic shifting. Now this is the a-hole part of me that comes out. We had a guy from a company, Magura, who makes amazing stuff, and he came into my shop. I was working at Miami this time. And he comes in, he did a whole clinic with us with the brakes and stuff, and it was great, very informative. The guy was super good. And at the very end of it, he goes, hey, you guys want to see something cool? This is like 2000 and maybe 17, maybe? You guys want to see something cool? Yeah, sure. He goes in the truck, comes back. Always when they go back to the truck, it's like a mystery, right? Comes back, and he has suspension with electronic lockout. This is 2017.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I sat back, and the other guy looks at me and goes, you can tell him? I was like, I'm going to wait till he's done. So he shows all the mechanics and stuff. And he goes, isn't that the coolest thing you ever seen? I'm like, kind of. Except that it was on a Cannondale in 2000.
Wow.
He's like, what? This is the guy who's been in the business longer than I have.
Right.
And I said, yeah, we had a ELO, electronic lockout, on a lefty back in 2000. And it was sold to the public. It wasn't like one of these one-off things. It was actually a viable concept that we had. So I've always... you hear a lot about innovation, and every company, there's amazing things about innovation or imitation, depending who you ask. But the innovation of Cannondale, having been on the inside, I'm sure at any other company I would have been privy to those things as well. But that was always amazing to me, like how they were pushing the boundaries and doing things like in 2010, they had a bike called Simon that wasn't production yet, but they made 6 of them. And a guy named Stanley Song, an amazing engineer and also an amazing person, teamed up with Cannondale, and they did an electronic, while you ride, would adjust your suspension.
Oh, didn't that come out later with like Honda do something very similar to that like on the downhill side?
They might have with Minar's
Yeah.
old bike that he could never take home. It was like such a prototype.
Yep.
But you know now as Fox Live Valve.
Oh, wow.
And it's so cool. But again, was already done. And we talked about Tom Petty and Red Hot Chili Peppers. There was like a thing a couple years ago where Chili Peppers stole a song that sounded like Mary Jane's Last Dance, and they interviewed Tom Petty for the clickbait, like, oh, what are you going to do? And he goes, a lot of our songs sound the same. I mean, I've got influenced by other people my whole life. I made a living out of it. Kind of diffused the situation. So I'm not saying that the company that I'm affiliated with did everything first, but man, they really had the balls to go for stuff.
Dogs in here.
Is that Sasquatch?
No, that was that's the mailman.
All right.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just waiting to see if it didn't escalate. Maybe she's getting used to him. So when you started out, you born in California? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
And then how did you? It sounds like there's a lot of Florida time.
There's a lot of Florida time.
Wait. The most interesting time was not in the United States, though.
Oh wait. Wow.
He went to Hogwarts.
I did.
Straight up Hogwarts.
I went to Hogwarts.
That's real.
So I was born in California, Long Beach, California. And then my dad had a job with a company called Fluor, and they did a lot with production of petrochemicals and things like that. So gas, this is as far as I remember it, gas kind of dried up in the 70s. You guys probably don't remember, you're too young. But there was like a real job shortage and gas shortage. And so the company said like, hey, we don't have a job for you. And my dad apparently was like, well, I'll go anywhere. And they're like, okay, well, you go to England. So we went to England. And we were there for a couple of years. And I was super young at that point. And then we came back. And then they said, hey, still kind of rough on the job thing. And he said, I'll go anywhere. And then they took the 3 kids at that time and my mom and we went to Belgium. So we lived there for a few years.
Whoa.
Then we came back, and that was kind of our last hurrah. And then a couple of years later, they were like, hey, we're moving to South Africa. We're going for 18 months. This is the contract. And for whatever, because I've been a contrarian my whole life, sorry, Mom and Dad, but my immediate instinct, 10 years old, was like, I don't want to go. I've got friends here. I don't want to go. So we went. 18 months turned into 6 years. But
Holy
in those formative years of 10 to 16, it was what an amazing place to, and I'm learning that the things that I'm most resistant to are the things that change my life for the better.
Aha.
And even though I know that now, I'm still going to resist the stuff that's probably the best for me
Right.
because I'm an idiot.
Right.
So I learned the hard way all the time. But growing up there was an amazing opportunity to ride bikes in the outdoors because.
So you got to ride in Belgium. So
I'm
you're
sorry,
riding over there.
in Africa.
South Africa. Sorry.
Yeah. So I started riding at 7 in California, and then I don't think from 7 to 10 was when we had already come back from England. So there was that gap riding in California. Mostly just a basic. It looked like a mini cruiser. It was a Tornado, Schwinn Tornado. I love that bike. And then once we went to Africa, we got better bikes because we were getting bigger, and that's kind of like the only outlet we had to really go outside. It wasn't a lot of skateboarding over there. We were way too far to surf or anything else, which I'm sure my parents were happy about because that was kind of.
It's Shark City, USA over there too.
Oh my goodness, yeah. We were at the beach in Durban once, and there's nobody at the beach, and it's like a sunny day. It's beautiful, and we go jump in the ocean. Wow, we're having a great time, and my mom's like not in the ocean, whatever. And somebody comes by and says, "Praat je Afrikaans?" And she, no, we don't speak Afrikaans. And then he tries to tell her in broken English, like, "This is a shark sign that says there are sharks today. Like, don't go there." And we're like in the water. My mom's like, "You gotta get out of the water!" Like freaking out.
Oh my God, it's like straight out of Jaws.
Straight Jaws.
Oh, it was. I mean, of course, like we can't hear because like a movie, you can't hear. So but nothing happened, thankfully. We did. I've seen documentaries about sharks in South Africa. We did realize that it looks like a volleyball court, like a sand beach volleyball court. The way they were putting up nets was, you can't net from floor to ceiling of the water. They just net like the first 4 feet.
Right.
So the sharks, they're not stupid. I mean, they just go under the net. The nets are
Right.
not really. I mean, they catch 1 in 1,000 sharks, or whatever. But we got lucky that day. Didn't see any sharks and had a great time.
And here we are.
And back in this whole so you end up in Florida though? Like, where does that? Because it seems like, I mean, I wouldn't peg Florida, as we said earlier, as a epic mountain bike scenario.
As a what bike?
Epic, like a great mountain bike location.
Mountain bike. What's a mountain bike?
That's the other word that I've learned this weekend.
Oh, got it.
But
is
wait,
good.
so you say mountain bike, like bikes in the mountains?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because Tour de France goes through the mountains.
Yeah,
And those
fair
are
enough.
what bikes?
That's
those
fair
are road
enough.
bikes.
Those are road bikes.
So what we're doing here
Okay.
together.
I wouldn't
This
peg
is-
it as a major biking location because it's aside from road biking, I wouldn't assume any off-road or any of that side of things would be in that space. But then obviously there's now like Alafia. I don't want to mess up the
Alafia.
names.
It doesn't
Alafia,
matter.
whatever
Yeah,
it
I know
is.
what you're talking about.
And then the other one that's right there in Tampa.
Man, if you ever felt dissed before, that was a great one.
Yeah,
and
there
the other one, I don't.
I don't remember the name of them. And then there's in Miami, isn't there a dump that turned into a downhill park or something?
Man, you make it seem so great. It's so beautiful the way you word that. So trail bikes.
Trail
right?
bikes. That's
Yeah.
what
Trail bikes. I was hanging out a while ago with a couple guys, and we went to a kind of a trail they had built in a place you wouldn't expect trail bikes, aka mountain bikes, to be. It was here. It was in Mobile, right?
Jeez.
Well
So
done.
you guys are already doing that. So when we say trail bikes, it opens up those people, and we love those people because first of all, they're having a conversation about bikes, whether they hate them or like them or it doesn't matter, or they're ambivalent. We get to tell them like, yeah, we've got trails. We've got trails that are really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
We take that word mountain out of it. We say trail bikes, and then there's a conversation. Now, trail is also like art is different for everybody. Some people, it's a paved trail that's smooth, and that's a trail. And some people, it's gnarly rocks and craziness, and it might be called birdie or whatever. That's a trail too. So the conversation, just like anything, is just getting to communicate what you're talking about, and then people see like, oh, off-road trails mean whatever. So like you guys in Alabama, we have some talent in Florida, all over Florida, that just sees an opportunity, and like you guys dedicate actual hard work and time, which is more valuable than money, I would argue. You guys make a dream happen, and that's Florida is crazy stuff that people come down there and don't bring their bikes, and they're like, I should have brought my bike. I'm down here in January where you're riding in a t-shirt or short, whatever you wear, spandex or whatever, and you're riding in 65, 70-degree weather in January, and the trails had 3 world champions quit. I mean,
Right.
you're riding real deal stuff. Yes, the dump you're talking about, there's a video called From Trash to Treasure, Virginia Key, sponsored by Max Eichel. Thanks, Mary Jane. They took the dredgings from the port of Miami and kind of put all this trash and all this stuff, and it's also where the shout out to Maz. It's where all the sewage goes through from Miami. Okay, so
Interesting.
it's called Virginia Key. It's just off of Key Biscayne, And this guy named Frenchie, who also works at Max Cycles, shout out Frenchie, is an amazing guy, and he is the visionary for a lot of trails in South Florida. And he makes these trails, and then a storm comes and demolishes them. Does Frenchie quit? No. He provides opportunity for thousands of people to have an outlet to go ride trails, which are, you're riding on the beach in Miami, and it's right there. The ocean's lapping up, and then you're on single track, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't make this. Oh man, I'm glad I have full suspension. Like, it's badass. Like, I try to sell it to people, and they're just, it's me. I'm not delivering it right. They're like, I'm never going down the ride. I'm not bringing my trail bike. I'm bringing a cruiser, or not. I'm taking a bike at all. But the trails are down there. There's probably 4 or 5 systems just in South Florida alone, and we're going down next week. Yeah, we're taking full suspension trail bikes.
Right.
It's amazing down there. And you guys have the open mind, the gift of an open mind to go ride anywhere because you have made stuff. And you see the value in being like, yeah, there's something everywhere. Mississippi, Florida, Colorado probably has trails, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's why I was glad
Does
that
Colorado have trails? Do they? Maybe.
they have a few.
Subtle.
Yeah, they got some
I
trails.
saw that.
Do you feel like the trails where there are mountains? That's maybe a loaded question, but do you feel like the trails where there are mountains, they're hard to build? I get it, but does that area have an advantage that creates a different type of rider than the trails where we have to be scrappy and figure it out where we have to be trail bikers, and because we don't have the option of mountains, right? And we have to be scrappy. Do you think there's an advantage to that from a riding perspective?
Scrappy, I like that. I think it's inherent. It's in the person that you're going to make it happen. So I don't know if I coined this. I don't think I did, and I don't need the credit. But if I'm stepping on your toes, then same, fuck off. I don't care. But I call it the Kelly Slater effect.
Oh.
Okay, that guy grew up and learned to surf in Cocoa Beach, and if you're surfing in Florida, it's like you're trail riding in Florida. You're an optimist. You're making the most out of something.
Man, what a quote.
And that dude wound up being 10, maybe 11-time world champ, and he's old. He's like 40. He's pretty old. So the fact that he rips the world's best waves, the hardest waves, and not only rips them, but like, in my opinion, like a Tom Curran, like a very artful, soulful, Rob Machado, kind of like just as beautiful to watch, even in the competitive setting, which is probably hard to do. That guy made mountains out of molehills. And that's what our trail riders do. We've got incredible talent, like every state does. These guys go travel out of state, and they do great because when these guys go ride or girls, they go ride for 2 hours, they're pedaling for 2 hours.
Right.
And because we don't have these mass expanses of beautiful, like granola bar commercials where you stop on the side of the trail, like, oh, it's so amazing. This is so beautiful. It's great, right? But they're riding for 2 hours, and they're riding in maybe it's 90 degrees and 100% humidity, and they're riding for 2 hours straight, and they don't have a lot of space, so it's really tight, and it's all turns, which, in my opinion, any racing is about the turns, unless it's drag racing. If you turn, you're screwed. But it's in the turns. Everybody can go pretty close to the same speed in the straights, but the turns, traction, suspension, your lines, it's all important. So it seems like there's more value to that. And if you can bone up on that, then you can take that anywhere. And the relief is like, I'm going downhill. I don't have to pedal for 20 minutes or 30 seconds, whatever it is like. So yeah, I think it's in you to take it. Obviously, there's a home track advantage. So if our guys that are talented that go up to Colorado to go race there, they do great. It's always a badge of honor to be there, like racing in Utah or Colorado. You see Utah first, Colorado second, Florida, and man, that stands out brighter than anybody else. Like, who is this idiot?
That's awesome.
How did this happen?
That is awesome.
Right.
And they're like, oh, the guy, he trains them, whatever. There's trails there, and it again, it's opening the minds of people to be like, hey, there's trails everywhere. This guy comes from Florida, and that wasn't me in third place but somebody from Florida probably.
Somebody.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think is interesting, again, just because this is a Christmas drop episode, and somebody might come out at Christmas with a little extra money in their pocket, and they're doing fairly well. And this is not, I'm not going to segue into it. And you can go to ridetherebellion.com to buy some merch.
Oh, you just did.
I know. We're gonna make a Nixon shirt at some point. I have an idea.
Is it sleeveless?
It's gonna be good. It'll be sleeveless. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sleeveless. I can do it. All right, but let's say they have it. We talked about this, and we'll tease it up. We'll do a whole episode on this, but I think it's interesting while he's here. Mm-hmm. So you've got money to buy a new bike. Do you need me to give you a number? Does that make it easier for you guys, or no? Do we not say a number? Because
either way.
All right, let's say no number. Okay. Right. So here's the conversation I think is interesting. So do you buy a pre-built, right? Do you buy used, or do you build one, right? Because I think there's 3 different things. You have a rep here to some extent. You have a guy that's bought mostly used bikes until recently, and then you have a guy who's built his own couple times. So what is your take on that? Where do you stand on that side of things?
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I understand.
You are, because
Do you have a preference?
because three of us did it differently.
Yeah.
And we're all love riding.
Right.
So the fact that there's so many avenues to get a bike is great, because some people are intimidated by a used bike, not having the knowledge. So then you get a new one or build your own or whatever that looks like. So it's really, I find that selling bikes has really been, in my experiences, you got to get them on the first bike, whether it's a POS or it's over their, whatever, get them on the bike, get them to experience what they want to do with that. Chances are they're going to buy the wrong bike for what they want to do, but the education with that bike is like, all right, now I've got a foundation of what I want to do. Mountain bike is stupid. I'm going to buy a road bike. Or I don't want to be in traffic, so let me get a gravel bike. So there's that first bike is maybe the most important bike. And then from there, you've learned how you're going to buy a bike, whether you can build a bike and you want to build a bike, or whether you're confident, like, hey, I feel like a used bike is probably in my spectrum of getting a bike, because I had experience with this one and it was used and it was a good experience and you know what to look for. So I feel like there's no wrong way to do it. It's really about getting butts on bikes. And you guys are great about that too. I mean, the bikes I saw at the Reb were like a pretty good mix of really interesting stuff. And we identified with our bikes for sure. And it was also refreshing, because we do like to talk shit. No one's really talking shit about people's bikes. There was such a cool spread of bikes out there, and also a great representation of different people. And again, it sounds cheesy, but that whole like community thing of just hanging out. And there was some talking shit, which I probably started and probably finished. Probably should have finished early, but it was so fun to be in that vibe, because that vibe is everywhere. And if you bring it, or if I don't have it and it's there, then I'm feeding off of that. Like, oh man, this is where I'm
totally with you. I only bring it up just because I think it's an interesting thing of like, not saying this is the de facto, which I appreciate your point on, but I've learned things over time of like stuff I wish I had the knowledge of, someone saying, hey, just a heads up. So it's more like a heads up scenario. So for example, I recently purchased that Trek EXE, right?
Right.
I bought it because I was angry in Chattanooga, because I don't get a lot of time off to go ride. My family agreed to go with me. So my wife, the warden, gave me lots of permission, right? And so I was riding a lot. I was gassed because I'm not used to climbing as much, right?
Right.
To your point about the Florida side, same thing here. And so I got up there and was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy an e-bike so that I can rotate on and off, right? So those days I can do that stuff. But then I bought the lowest end one. And now all of a sudden I'm in a spot where I know enough about riding, at least my other bike that's not, because it was a high-end complete purchase, right? That now I'm like, oh, I know why I bought that, why I like that fork over this now, and those things. And it's like I should have. It's one of those instances where I wish I would have asked around a little more to get someone that has experience. Be like, hey man, if you're going to buy the low-end bike, just know you're probably going to end up upgrading everything just based on your riding style and that. And that's where I'm going from it. Like, he did a build out. Would you change stuff now that you've shattered chains like 600 times?
Yeah, but having Nixon around all weekend, we've kind of deduced the issues of the chain shattering.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But perhaps, because we can never tell, really. But you know, we had some conversations about that. I will say that building a bike your own, it's exactly how you want it. It's custom, but it's way more expensive that way.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, and everybody's looking for different things. Some people have the money, and some people are willing to take a loan, or some people credit card, or whatever that looks like. It's really what you're most comfortable with. And yes, use your community. Talk to people like you that went through that. And it doesn't mean, and I'm learning this the hard way, I used to think that if I gave somebody advice, they should take it. And if they don't take it, why am I giving you advice? And that's not what it's about. It's about just getting a general feel for things and going with that. Because again, my hypocrisy is so deep. I don't do that either. I ask for people's advice and I don't take it.
Right.
And I realize I probably should have most of the time. That's not an apology to any of you, by the way. I still won't take it.
What do y'all think the diagnosis on the chain is then?
It's the
Birdie.
It's the part on top that's messing it up.
What do you mean?
The big 210 pound on top of the bike.
Talking about really thunder thighs over here.
There were some just from my having experienced what we were doing. There were some really rough shifts. The chain looks a little short. So there's a lot of what I like to say little red checks. Like you get green checks and you get red checks. And with your bike, you just kind of check things off. So, the JRA, we hear that in the bike shop a lot. Like, I was just riding along and my bike split in half.
JRA, that's fantastic.
And that's lore. That's been in bike shops way before me. But there is this thing, and it's legitimate sometimes, but they say, I was just riding along and my frame split in half. And that's a precarious thing to be in because you never want to make anybody feel guilty, right? You want to hey, you got a problem? Let's take care of it. What do you want to do? But some people use it as a get out of jail free card kind of thing. Like, I mean, they're going to obviously warranty this. And you're like, well, yeah, but let's just look at the YouTube and see this video where you jumped off this thing and you heard this loud crack 3 years ago.
Right.
And the fact that it fell off your car in a car rack that you put on your Facebook thing and you mentioned that and now you're still riding it. And yes, you were riding with your kid across the block and you went off a 3-inch curb and it cracked in half. Well, it didn't do that. It just finally gave out. So there are, I forget where we're going with that, but there are a lot of things that contribute to, there are a lot of, the red checks, there are a lot of things that contribute to that. Age of the chain, the shifting, the mating of certain parts that should work together. I know it's like a commercial thing. Like Shimano says, hey, just use our stuff together. And SRAM says they'll say that because there is real value to that. But of course you can mix and match. But when you do that, you are putting perhaps a little red check being like, hey, it's not why, but it's another thing in that column to be like, it's not a green check because it's not all SRAM. Not saying all SRAM or all Shimano don't have their problems. Some things break. But there's so many variables now, it's really hard to diagnose exactly what it is.
I always think that's interesting when we look at it we've talked about this a lot, is like you look at parts and stuff. And so when you see a bike come out and you see it roll out and you see what's like, so I have a Gorilla Gravity, right? And so all they are is a frame manufacturer. That's it, right? And then they just assemble like a lot of other shops, but they just assemble whatever fits on their bike. Truly is what they've done, in my opinion, because they flop. And I'm sure there's a little bit of back-end negotiation that goes along with, RockShox comes along and says, hey, we'll give you a discount on these forks if you buy X number. I get it. That's the business side. But I often wonder how much of it is, did you guys really test this a season? Or is it a matter of like supply and demand situation where you're just buying what fits, versus like if you're a bike manufacturer, I'm not throwing Cannondale or Trek or anybody under the bus or spec, but I'm sure they spend a lot more time looking at what components line up better for them. And they're probably 2-3 years in advance or maybe a year in advance, whatever it might be, versus what it seems like sometimes on these other bikes. And I'm not trashing Gorilla Gravity either, but where they just kind of put parts on things, which I think is to your point about tolerances. I've always found that very fascinating because
right.
I've seen other people go through stuff. And then I've seen friends, Todd, not throwing him under the bus, but Todd that was out there with the Specialized. He loves that Orbea of his, but he breaks chains every single ride. And he thinks it's because of torque relation. And it could be, but it's one of those things of like he's also monkeyed with a lot of different parts. And all of a sudden you're getting out of manufacturer tolerance specs. And there's a range of that. Is that real, or am I just talking shit as normal?
No, I think you are talking shit, but I think it's also real. They go hand in hand for sure. There's just, again, so many variables, and that's part of what keeps bike shops in business is that people monkey with their own bikes. And I'm not saying bike shops are perfect. Going back to the manufacturers and speccing bikes, that is a real serious game of trying to make value for money. Obviously, it's a business, so they're trying to make money, but they're also trying to keep their consumers. You're not trying to get the cheapest stuff out there. So, if you sell 600 of this model, but it was a dog, then you kind of misrepresented the brand. So they're trying to get the best stuff possible. And the testing that goes into, especially the big companies that have the money to do that, the R&D that goes into that. I know at Cannondale, there are people that are, that's their job. They're supposed to go out and find the stuff that works the best with what the bike can do in the parameters. So it has to have an offset. It has to have this. It has to be able to run the AI, which is Cannondale's asymmetric integration, the way they do their Boost, which probably came out before Boost, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Innovation. But people like Ian Moore or Sam or Nina, these are like, as far as I know, they're like product managers that actually go, and a lot of times they'll ride the stuff and they'll make sure that it fits with the parameters of what the bike's supposed to do, because so much engineering goes into making these bikes ride as good as they can. Yep. That it doesn't benefit them to put on some cheaper stuff, whether it's good or not. If it doesn't benefit the bike, then there's no point in doing that. So there really is it's uber competitive out there where they're trying to get the best bang for the buck. And yes, of course, Fox and RockShox, they're all coming to the table with these new things, and there's deals. And again, like a sponsorship, it's never just black and white. It's never like, hey, come to the table, buy this many, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. There's things like, oh, you have a team that's US based. You do. Okay. So how about if we'll buy stuff from you, but then you got to support our team. And support means whatever it means. Maybe it's 20 forks. or maybe, well, hopefully we're riding lefties because that shit is dank. But if we have to ride regular forks, which is cool, I'm not above that. Obviously, I'm riding a regular fork now. It's okay. But there are so many things that go into these deals, which is so cool. It keeps it exciting for these people to get the best product possible for the money.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. I just always think it's an interesting. There's so much behind it, and again, I guess because I'm a business guy and I care. I like biking. I like the industry. I like all of it. I like learning about it stuff. So it's cool to me to hear that side of it. Someone who's seen that perspective and grown in that perspective.
Dale today said something interesting. We were riding,
just
and I took my headphone. It was in between songs, so I could hear him, unfortunately. And he said, he goes, yeah, but Drew and I, and he's you guys are great, like very humble, and it makes it even better. Obviously, I'm attracted to that. I love that where you guys are at.
We're the humblest people we know.
Even better.
But our egos are so big that they keep us humble. It's
correct.
like a reversion.
Yeah, it's like a black hole. We're black holes.
Yeah, that's right. The ring.
He said today, he goes, but Drew and I, we're so out of the bike industry. And I was like, you got to stop. You got to stop because your demographic, whatever you identify as, your demographic is the bike industry. And I would say the biggest part of the bike industry. They're not making bikes to be cool. They're making bikes to be in business. And you guys are buying the bikes.
Right.
And especially in your demographic of being over 30, I'm assuming, right? Is that a stretch?
Fair enough.
And being whatever else you are, that's who's buying the most bikes. And that's who they're trying to sell to. So you guys are, in fact, the bike industry. And you're probably paying full price for stuff too, which is, again, so valuable for companies and bike shops and everything else. So it's like, that's a huge deal. Now, when you guys get sponsored, it'll be different. But then sponsorship, you're selling more bikes for the company. So it works for everybody. It's this,
I get it. I'm all for it. Look, I'll sell out in a second.
Yeah,
I have no problem with it whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's enabled you.
Right.
So my passion will be if we did a job once and got hired by Panasonic, and we weren't trying to be a brand sponsor, but we ended up being the brand sponsor, and we launched one of their cameras in this huge format, and they just walked over or called us and said, "Here's $25,000. Make whatever you want. Parameters are X." Like that's dream stuff when you get to that point when you can go down that path and literally just do whatever you want.
Right.
So I'm all for it. I'll sell out and jump down that because it did enable us to do better and better things. Sorry.
Well, may I ask? I'm going to ask you a question. I almost asked if I could ask, but I'm asking you a question. If you didn't believe in a product, would you accept their sponsorship?
Yes and no. So here's how that's worked for me before. Is that if it were something that I felt on a moral objection, right? Like they did something, then I would probably pass. But if it's a product in which I can help sell it, I'm in advertising. I will shamelessly peddle whatever I got to.
Pedal. I like that, pedal.
So, yeah, you like that. So one of the things that ended up happening, like with Panasonic, eventually we outgrew their cameras and it didn't matter anymore. But we had made so much content for them, we sold a bunch of it. We were basically sponsored. We were brand ambassadors.
Right.
And I own Reds. Reds are the equivalent of an $80,000 camera versus a $3,000 camera.
Right.
Panasonic being 3, Red being 80. I still use the Panasonic over it because it helped them sell cameras, and that's the relationship we had.
Yeah.
And so I have no problem with it because there's no moral objection. It's just, Birdie, please stop.
I'll ignore her. You're fine. I just do the cold.
No, she'll just keep doing it though. She's nonstop.
I like the attention.
Well, that's good.
Sorry, Elise. And Ryder.
Elise,
I'm in trouble with the other
Elise,
dog.
Birdie is a dog.
Yeah, that's true.
Just in case.
Anyway, so no, that's an interesting point. I don't know. How would you do with that? Because you're a little more convicted about stuff like that.
Well, first of all, I've been sitting in this conversation.
$20 or $20, I guess.
Yeah.
Also.
And sometimes I wonder, like, how do I fit in this room? Because you guys have done such, like, both of you in your industries have done such successful and, like, great and grand things. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, if somebody was actually interviewing me, I'd be like, well, one time I played basketball.
No, but that's not fair because
no, it's not.
The community side of things of playing that flag and seeing the outside of how that works, I'll say it publicly. I think it's bullshit that you don't get paid for what you currently do.
Right.
Right? Because there's money there to do it. I'm calling it out. I'll say it. Yeah. Right? I'll throw myself under the bus and get spanked later. But I think it's bullshit because the amount of stuff, and that generates revenue back for it. Non-for-profits still have officers that literally help run the business. You are running a business. There's two of you. One of you is nice enough to forego that. The other of those is you. And you should get paid. So, like, I think to some extent, you're undervaluing based on, if I'm being candid, societal norms. Because I've worked with you. I dropped it. Dale became a grip. Grips are guys that like put up stands.
Yeah, he told me the story. He was on fire about it. He loved that.
He's freaking good at it. It turns
Yeah.
out he's really good at it.
Yeah.
And then I tested him and made him go work with somebody else, and it wasn't me. Like, just to make sure it wasn't a friendship.
Right, right.
And they all were like, Dale did a great job. So you got the ability to do whatever you want. You just gotta.
I don't know what I want
You
to be
gotta break
when I
those
grow
chains.
Okay, well, so let's just talk. Let's in the bicycle world, right? You say like you on the microphone. You be like, oh, how do I contribute to this? We talked about marketable things like people buying bikes, and you had a surprise party with a shit ton of people at your house, right?
Fair enough.
I was at the Reb. I'm super thankful you guys let me go to the Reb. That was again, if there were shit trails, I probably wouldn't tell you. But I was so honored to be invited to go there. But they were those trails. Again, I've ridden trails. I've ridden a lot of trails that I like. I've ridden a lot that I love. I've ridden some that didn't suit me, but it's something different. I'm opening my mind to ride something different that doesn't maybe vibe with me, but I'll try it. For sure, I'll try it. But what you do is maybe the most important thing, and again, sounding cheesy on the hippie level, but you bring people together. And yes, that does eventually become marketable for bike shops because people are buying bikes. They're asking you guys what you have, and they see the clothes you have, and they buy these sweet potato with a Duke on the back, and they're buying stuff. So there's a real buying power, marketing, but more importantly, you're providing a community for guys like Todd or John Mackey, who didn't show up. I'm not sure if he exists even. Or like Jakey Poo, or Captain America Paul, or Justin. Buenos dias. There's you do the best part of I think what we do. I think what we do is important, but there's it's a puzzle where you might be the most integral piece of that puzzle. You gonna cry, bitch?
No,
perfect.
So what I've seen though is like you maybe resonate with us and like what we do, and we resonate with you because we have the same philosophy towards the sport, right?
Right.
Like you did what we are doing as like a zero drop, have fun, just don't suck personality when you were riding for Cannondale, like on a higher level. So I think for us to talk to you and like get to see, damn, what we're doing isn't unachievable on a large scale.
Right.
You know, like you've done it, and you did it without head microphones and social media, and we're super successful with it. So like,
but I think he embodies the spirit of rebellion. The rebellion.
Yeah, he definitely does.
Yeah, but for real though, I mean, that's what it is. You proved that's what I was saying earlier. You walked your own path to get there.
Yeah.
You walked your own path to get there. We've all kind of been down that path. Like, I think that's a crucial part of. That's my favorite thing about mountain biking now. Again, the fitness was something else. It's the mental gains that I've gotten from it.
And it
just so happens I lose a little weight or I feel better about my body or whatever it might be.
Almost goes full circle back to what bike do you buy or build or rent or whatever. You appreciate the shitty one you start with.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
To appreciate the good one you have now, right? Like
Bug was an example of that.
Yeah, Bug. We were talking to Bug last night about it, and Bug doesn't do any maintenance on his bike. He doesn't clean it. I mean, I maybe taught him his maintenance policy.
Oh, Bug, you may want to rethink that one.
I didn't teach him because there's none. There's no maintenance policy.
I've heard your bike creak this morning.
So you could hear that? I didn't know you could
Shattered windows. I'll probably fix that. No.
So Bug last night, his energy towards like his first bike that he had was good for what he was doing, but like you said, you learn and you upgrade and it gets better based on you getting better, right? But I always have this theory, and I've said it on here before: mountain biking or trail biking is super cheap. Oh yeah, trail biking is super cheap until you have friends that do it. Right? So you're like influenced by your social circle. Guess who the social circle is? It's us. Like, so we can influence whoever comes into the circle to do what we think is cool,
right? Or
what we want them to do, which is marketable, as you've proven through Cannondale, is marketable for a company to approach.
Oh, they proved it through me. I didn't. I had very little. I had the easy part.
Yeah, but
taking the stickers and hats and wearing them.
Yeah, but you're passionate about it. Like you.
Can,
you know, like, and that comes across like, hey, I want to talk to the funny guy that got last place.
I mean, it happens. It happens. So I don't know how. By the way, this is going to go by. We're going to end, and it's going to be way too soon. That's how I know I'm having a good time, because it ends way too fast.
Yeah, well, I was going to give you just a heads up. It is 11 o'clock Central, which is 12 p.m. your time, and you had an ETA of whatever.
5,
yeah, and so I just want to give you a heads up if you.
Well, thank you. Well, let's keep going. All right. But one of the races I did, again, there are probably more funny races than actual like performance races that I did. But there was one in a very short track that we have in Deerfield Beach, Florida. It's a very short track. It's a lot of fun. And I remember doing a group ride in the morning with the Cannondale truck was there, and we did a road ride. And secretly, sorry, Mom and Dad, I love road riding. I don't tell a lot of people. I mean, I don't know how many people listen, whatever, don't worry about it. But I do love road riding. I like to talk shit because for me, it's funny for me. If somebody else laughs, then great. But I did a road ride in the morning, and we had kind of a loose demo where we got some guys on the bikes, and it was like very impromptu, and it was like on the fly. We used to do demos like guerrilla style, like come into a group ride, be like, hey, who wants to ride a whatever bike? And getting guys off their road bikes is pretty tough because they're very like, hey, performance based, and this is like this is a bike. But we got like 3 guys on the bikes, and we had a show. It was the Mike's ride down in South Florida. It was a blast. And then I had a race that I had to go to at 11 o'clock. So I went to the race, and I remember doing my 4 laps, and I came in pretty slow on the last lap. And when I came in, I had to email the race director to be like, hey, you already packed up the finish line, and everybody that raced has gone home. And this is on a 6-mile track. It was my last lap. That's how long my 6 miles the last one took. I remember coming in and being like, well, I don't want a DNF on next to my name. So I had to call him and said, I just finished. So he wound up changing, being like, I mean, it was like 9 hours, whatever he put on there, 9 hours or whatever. But I have, as a matter of fact, pulled off my jersey and put it on my helmet and slept on the side of a trail during a race. I've done that during an endurance race. And I got 3rd in that one. That was the triple bypass or something we did in Santos in Florida. I remember a guy coming to get me like, you okay? I'm like, yeah. Put my jersey back on, went in, across the finish line, and then for the whole thing, I wound up getting enough points to place on the podium.
Good.
That's awesome.
What's your jam? Is it if it's an A or a B? Because I want you to be. I want to polarize it a little bit here.
Okay.
Riding a fresh trail, brand new trail, something you've never ridden, basically, or the old familiar. What's your favorite?
Man, A or B. That's tough. I'll go with. I want to say fresh because you're supposed to say fresh, but man, getting in that groove, and you know the lines.
Yeah.
There's something cool about that being like, all right, I'm getting a little, whether it's quicker or better handling or the two that go together. Oftentimes, there's something about being in that. We talked about like turning off that internal thought, and it becomes about like finding that flow and being like, oh, I'm there. Whether that flow is 15 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour through a super techie section. Okay, so I'll go. That's your answer. I'll go with the tried and true and what I know, because also the beauty of trails, it's always changing.
Right.
That trail today and after a storm is something completely different, and then the season comes along and then it's the same again. So I would go with the tried and true because it never is the same.
That's good.
I think it's awesome. And I think like getting his perspective yesterday, and like he's obviously a lover of trail bikes. Like it's his life. It's always been his life. But like getting him to ride the Rebellion with us, and like we've built it. Like we say, we are addicted to the feeling of somebody else's excitement on the trail.
That's very obvious.
Yeah, and like when you're there and you like finish and you're like, damn, that was awesome. And
Yeah.
so like to get validation from someone that's traveled around the world and gotten to ride a lot of other places is really cool for us, you know, as a group.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But you having me here and holding me in this regard of having been experienced some things,
Right.
that's validation for me. So it's a two-way street, which is most things. It's
exactly.
it's
That's
this
exactly
hugging
right.
thing that we keep
Just a
doing.
circle jerk.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a DVD, but where you put the what is it called?
It's where you put the DVD.
No.
We'll keep it a DVD.
Japanese paintings. Japanese paintings.
Japanese paintings.
Yes.
Had you been here for the pre-show, you would have gotten that gag out of the way.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need to plug? Do you do the follow me on social? I mean, I'm just looking at time.
Wait, we have one thing he has to tell us. The pastor, the old bull.
Oh wait, that was
Yeah,
gonna be my sign off. I was gonna let him sign off.
Well, I think we're good on time, so
this
I
is
don't want
good.
whatever your time limit is.
Okay,
We should do
okay.
that.
So, yeah,
We're knocking on
We
it.
can do the old.
We're giving
bull.
you the bonus time.
Okay.
The old bull kind of flows with the conversation, anyways. So
Yeah,
it's like.
yeah.
Well, it started with you saying that the guy golfing who,
Yeah.
you smashing and he 150s. And
Right.
winds up killing it. So in the movie, Clint Eastwood, Heartbreak Ridge, I believe it is. I'm a big fan of that movie, big fan of Clint Eastwood. He has a conversation when he's talking to these young Marines, and he says, I'm probably saying the wrong movie, but again, I don't care. The lesson is in there where, and Coots, if you're listening, you're probably not, but if you are, this is for you, baby. There's an old bull and a young bull standing on top of a hill. And the young bull, they're looking down on this field. There's all these cows down there. And the young bull says to the older bull, hey, we should run down there, fuck a cow, and run back. And the old bull says, son, we'll walk down and fuck them all.
I just want to end the show right there.
I mean, you can.
I had
You
my
can.
brothers.
You can.
It just cuts away. It goes straight to black, and that's the end of it. And it's just like,
We have that as a soundbite now, though.
oh yeah, we're gonna use it.
But the thing that's funny to that thing is like you said that yesterday, but I think whatever day when you got in town, you were telling me because I was like, so what's your role with Cannondale now? You're like, well, I'm out to the pasture. I'm just like the old bull. So like when you said it, it was it was like full circle for me. Like that was that was the funny part about it. I don't know if you intended it to be funny.
I didn't.
Sometimes I don't know with you.
I'll take that. I'll take that. You're in a big group of people that are ambiguous about what I'm saying. You yourself included. But if we are running low on time, I will plug some things. I will plug hashtag Tallahassee on Instagram. Also, hashtag Tallahassee Trail Festival. That's all Tallahassee features and trails. Most of them. I'm trying to get more. I'll also tag Visit Tallahassee. We've got great trails. And you guys, there's an invitation anytime. Come to Tallahassee. I would love to spend the time and show you what I think you guys would like the most and make the most of your time there. We've got breweries. We've got...
They have cider.
We'll find a cider or two, perhaps. We might even have Cider Fest at my house and have you guys camp in the backyard. And my neighbors won't be too excited about that, but that's okay. They'll learn. It'll be one night.
Because it's an apartment? That would be...
Yeah, that would be even better, right? I would love you guys to bring... If it's just you guys or one of you or whatever, or if it's a crew, we'll do it. We'll accommodate you. I'm affiliated. I work with a great bike shop, Epic Bike Shops in Tallahassee, Florida. They're all about accommodating. They're all about the ride. They're like, hey, man, what's it going to take to get you riding? We're going to fix your bike. We're going to get you a bike. We're going to give you trail beta. Whatever it is, it's a really cool vibe there. All the shops in Tallahassee are great because you walk in and there's not that, what I call...
Sasquatch too.
With a
Full
mini Sasquatch.
mode, yeah.
Dang.
You got him.
But there's that vibe when you walk in, you're cool.
That's awesome.
It's not you walk in and whatever that is. We've all experienced that.
Yep.
It's hey man, what's going on? And it's a real like, what is going on? And you should have an answer ready because we want to engage in conversation with you. So again,
when I was there in Tallahassee, to your point, like a couple of the guys that were U.S. Forest Service workers, they didn't have bikes, and they loaned them some specialized stump jumpers or something for the week, and I was like, that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Like, he was riding it all around, like slamming it through the. I mean, riding it smoothly through the pump track.
JRA, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
My chain snapped.
Through the pump track, and he's like, oh, I got to get this bike back really quick. I was like, back where? And they loaned it to him all week.
That's fantastic.
For the whole
Okay,
time
so again, marketing. Mm-hmm. We're all in marketing. Mm-hmm. You just validated that whole thing with the goodness of those guys lending the bike.
Right, and I remembered it.
That story comes now, and we've got Bug. Okay, probably fall asleep, but he's listened to it. So that comes full circle. That attitude of, like you guys have, just helping people out, building trails, and creating that stoke, it always comes back around. Right. So now Epic Bikes has credit for lending random guys bikes, and it's a marketing thing. So I'll plug probably the fastest bikes around, Cannondale bikes. They're amazing. Definitely test ride ones. See if you feel that's the bike for you. If you can ride a lefty, ride it. It's not for everybody. Those bikes.
Don't you go in circles though? If you ride a lefty, doesn't it just go?
Yeah. If you're an idiot. So yeah, you two. Yeah, it'll be tight circles. Yeah. But regular people, no, it's an amazing product. It's really cool. But obviously, I'm a big fan of Cannondale. Cannondale, thank you for every opportunity in the past and present, and hopefully the future.
He's still in the pasture. He's still alive.
I'm still there, man.
Still in the pasture, hanging out.
Kids jumping the fence, and I don't chase them. I'm old. I'll be 62 in, well, we know, 11 years. No big deal.
It changes every time. If you guys
it does.
If you've been around,
no
one knows, and it's never going to get known.
Well, if you want to know the age, I was born the same year that NPR, Starbucks, a small company called Cannondale. What year? 1971.
Same look at that.
You're a young man.
Full circle.
You're a good young man. You got a ways to go.
I'm almost dead. I'm good. I'm good with it. I'm just saying, we're at the end of the road. Let's end of the trail.
wait till you're rowing your little rowboat around in a circle.
One-handed.
Playing with your dinghy. Hey, you got to be there. That was another one.
Got it.
Last night. That was when we were listening to the chocolate
with a couple
sausages.
ciders.
Yeah. And the Hello Kitties.
I got to blow her out there. I got to kill her. That's going to drive me nuts. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode. As Nixon said, you can follow. What's your at Nixon?
At Nixon Rides on Instagram. And yeah, that's probably the most. That's probably the most that I do right there.
Yeah, hit him on the gram at Nixon Rides.
And thank you so much for coming, man.
Oh man, a real pleasure. Pleasure doesn't sell it, but thanks for letting me stay at your house. Thanks for accommodating me. Letting me ride the Reb. I feel like I got a backdoor experience with you guys. Still hurts a little bit. That's my sad last on you guys.
Just seen the fifth guy. That's for Paul.
Oh man, Paul, eat it up,
Captain America.
All right. Well, that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. And as always, just remember what Nixon says.
Ride it like you stole it.
Perfect.
Oh man, you got him. Good.
That was a good one. He closed it well.
Dead in
Do
the.
you need me to give you a cue?
No, I started sweating. I started like, I always forget this part. How do I forget? And then you like tee it up, and I'm still like.
Probably better that you didn't tee it up for me. And,
Yeah.
All right, kill the streams, Ray.
Man, that was